the 153rd Open Championship, won by Scotty Scheffler. What an incredible week that it was. We're going to talk about, we talked a lot yesterday about Scotty Scheffler, but we'll continue that conversation about Scotty, talk about some more incredible stats. The one that brought up yesterday was the fact that this is his 9th win in his last 25 starts, and he's finished outside of the top 10 just 5 times. I mean, right there, right off the bat, that is just incredible. It's remarkable what we're watching from Scotty Scheffler. It just makes you wonder, what's next? What are we going to see next? We'll try and project a little bit of that moving forward as to what we might see out of Scotty Scheffler in the future. It's really hard to say, because as I've said before, eventually the game catches up to you. The greatest of all time in the sport, what they usually end up doing is they figure out a way to take that lesson of, okay, the game's caught up to me, and they figure out something. They figure out a way to evolve. And you would expect Scotty Scheffler to figure out a way to evolve, because he is that dominant right now. And that's the word that everyone has been using to describe Scotty Scheffler, is he is so dominant. And it's pretty remarkable to see what he's done, not just this year, and even last year was a pretty incredible year, but you go back to when he won the Masters up until now. We're going to go over that in a little bit. It is it's staggering, the results that we are seeing from Scotty Scheffler. So thank you very much for joining once again. Another stream for this one, recapping the entire Open Championship. We'll go down the leaderboard. Like I said, we're going to talk a lot of Scotty Scheffler. We'll also talk a little bit of Ryder Cup, some interesting Ryder Cup stuff to look forward to. And yeah, we're gonna recap the final major of the year. We'll take a look back at the previous 3 majors, and maybe what we learned from this major season, and maybe something to look forward to next year. We'll also take a look at next year's major championship venues. Just a quick look over at what we've got coming up ahead for next year. But let's take a look at what we saw this week, which was domination from Scotty Scheffler. He wins the Open Championship, his first Open that he's won. He has now won 4 majors, 2 this year, and he is 3/4 of the way to the career Grand Slam. All that he is missing out on is, of course, the U.S. Open. Scotty this week, number 1 in strokes gained putting, number 1 in strokes gained approach. That's pretty nice to be able to rely on your putter so well. And that's what I said. I believe it was Friday night. I think we were talking, or Friday afternoon, we were talking about how does Scotty lose this? And the only way that I could really think of is if he doesn't putt well. I think that was the only thing that you could really conceive as a way for him to let the field come back, because he's so good at hitting the ball, pretty good with his driver, but he's so good with his irons. And they talked about it quite a bit, I know, on the American broadcast. I had to ditch the broadcast. I had to go Sky Sports. So I really wasn't watching a ton of NBC's coverage. Sky Sports did a phenomenal job. And if you have Peacock, I would recommend next year watching. Hopefully they keep the Sky Sports feed up next year, because they did an outstanding job. But I know they were talking a lot about, from what I was reading online, he just hits everything to pin high. And I mean, that's what he does. He hits everything to pin high from pretty much every angle. And if he doesn't have a favorable angle, he's okay with hitting it 20, 25 feet left, but pin high, and giving himself that chance for birdie to occasionally roll one in, cozy up a putt to tap in range, and move on to the next hole. He's fine with par. And I think that's something that amateur golfers should really strive for, is to be okay with par. it is okay to make par every once in a while. And that's what Scottie Scheffler does. He, even if he's on the green and he has a pretty good look at birdie, yeah, he might not make every single one, but he knows that he's so consistent, so good with the putter that he'll figure it out. He'll get some putts to go eventually. And just a remarkable week. So he ends up at 17 under this week. That does it for the Open. Last time it was 15 under that Shane Lowry was at, also a runaway. That was a 6-stroke victory in 2019 for Lowry. This year it is a 4-stroke victory. Harris English ends up in a solo second, gets to 13 under. He shot 5 under today, and he did it with the putter. He was second in strokes gained putting. And Harris English, he's going to be making a run here at the Ryder Cup team. Taking a look at the Ryder Cup standings, he came into the week at 10th, and I believe with this performance, he's going to jump up to somewhere in the top 6, which is the automatic qualifiers. Perhaps that is where we'll see Harris English again. He might be playing for Team USA. It looks like it. I mean, unless he has a month that is, full of missed cuts, I don't see how Harris English is off of Team USA. So big week for Harris English. Also, Chris Gotterup, who's looking at being perhaps a captain's pick, played very well last weekend in Scotland at the Scottish Open. Then follows it up with the solo third at 12 under. Gotterup shoots 67 in the final round. Then in a tie for 4th, which gets you into the Masters, Wyndham Clark, he came from out of nowhere to shoot 65 today, gets to 11 under. Some interesting comments from Kevin Kisner on Wyndham Clark at the U.S. Open. We'll talk about that in a little bit as part of us talking about the broadcast. Matt Fitzpatrick, he was able to rally, had a very up and down weekend, but he gets himself a T4, also at 11 under. And then Haotong Li will be teeing it up at the Masters next year, 11 under. He for the championship, 1 under today. I mean, he stood in there and finishes top 5. I think Haotong Li might be the runner-up winner out of the whole week. Played tremendous all week long, and I mean, it was expected for him to. I think a lot of people were expecting him to eject himself from the championship and shoot like 75 or something like that, but no, he hangs in there for 70 today. Outstanding week for Haotong Li, making a little bit of history for China. Robert McIntyre, Xander Schauffele, Rory McIlroy, all at 10 under. They tied for 7th. And then Bryson DeChambeau shoots 64, goes bogey free. So how about this bookend week? He begins the week birdie free, ends it bogey free, 64, 7 under, round of the day for Bryson DeChambeau, who at one point was tied for second. I believe that was right when he finished his round, if I remember right, and he gets himself into a top 10 here at the Open after what looked like it could have been a pretty miserable week. So that's an outstanding turnaround. And you think about what he did in the rounds 2, 3, and 4, 65, 68, 64. All he needed to do is shoot even in the first round, and we would have had ourselves one interesting duel down the stretch between DeChambeau and Scheffler. But sometimes that's the case. You have one of those bad rounds, and it ends up freeing you up. And certainly DeChambeau seemed freed up after that. Corey Connors finishes tied for 10th at 9 under, along with Brian Harman and Russ Henley. So that is your top 10. We don't need to go down the rest of the leaderboard here, but it's going to be a lot of Scotty talk today, and we're going to be thinking about what does this look like in the grand scheme of things. And, and I'll go back to what I said after the PGA Championship. I think he gets the career Grand Slam, and I think he gets to 7 majors. Is that lowballing it? Who knows, right? I again sound like a broken record, but a lot of people thought the same thing about Jordan Spieth, and he's still stuck on 3. Took Rory McIlroy 11 years in between winning majors, and it was at the same point. He had 3 of the 4, and he needed just one more, and it took him so many tries just to win a major, let alone the career Grand Slam. So certainly it's possible for the game to eventually catch up to Scotty, which it does to all of the greats, and you have to evolve, and you have to figure out, how do you get past that roadblock? It seems like there's not a roadblock ahead for Scotty Scheffler, but this is remarkable stuff. Data Golf has their all-time ranking as to what your peak was over the last 3 decades, and a month ago after he won the Memorial was Scotty's peak. And I'm curious if that will change after this week, if he is either right at that peak or very close to it, because the way that he's going, I mean, this is historic stuff. We haven't really seen a guy since Tiger come close to what he's doing. And I think what's most impressive is it's not just 1 year or 2 years. It's ever since he won, and even before he won the Masters. He won the Phoenix Open. This is back in 2022. He won the Phoenix Open, won the Arnold Palmer, won the WGC Dell Technologies match play, and then he won his first major, the Masters. And I went back. If you start at that 2022 Masters, he's finished outside of the top 20 15 times. And he has 17 victories if you include this week and the Masters. Back from 2022, not the 2024 Masters. That is just ridiculous consistency. And when you look at all of these results, there are so many, second and third place finishes. And you go back to, well, what if he had won the U.S. Open? What if Matt Fitzpatrick hadn't hit one of the great U.S. Open shots ever? Perhaps you're looking at a playoff between Fitzpatrick, Scheffler, and Zalatoris. Maybe Scheffler stands tall. He could have been already eclipsing the career Grand Slam. You think of 2020 in the PGA Championship. He came very close there. As a matter of fact, he finished T4 at that 2020 PGA Championship. And ever since then, all he's done is seemingly win majors or finish in the top 10 at major championships. Since the 2020 PGA Championship, he has 4 wins and he has 4 finishes outside of the top 20, which include a T21 and a T23. So this is more than just 1 or 2 years. It's more than just a couple of majors. The consistency is Tiger-esque, and that's where you start to make those comparisons. And Bones had a great line yesterday, and I feel the same way, where he was saying, I didn't think I would ever see anyone that was close to Tiger in my lifetime. I didn't think that either. But here we are, and it seems like that way. And again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. He just doesn't miss shots. And when he does, he gets himself right out of trouble. Seems like almost every time he makes a bogey or a double, he follows it up with either a birdie or a run of birdies. And it's just incredible stuff to hear him, talk about, like, earlier in the week, how there's, his mindset of trying to almost keep it as easy as possible. And you think of what Tiger would do. And he went through all this vigorous training to almost build up like this robotic type golf swing and, this robotic type mentality where, it was the militaristic and literal military training that Tiger went through. And then you hear Scotty, who takes the complete opposite approach, a 180 in all sense. And they're both as successful. And, NBC had that great graphic of exactly 1,197 days it took for between the first major victory and the fourth major victory for both Tiger and Scotty, just furthering those two with their comparisons. But we're truly witnessing history. And I said that yesterday. Go into today, remove all fandom status, and just embrace history, because this doesn't happen often. This isn't normal. This isn't what you can't get used to this. And the fact that he's won all 4 majors by multiple strokes, I think the closest one was just the 3-stroke win. And if I remember right, that's the 2022 Masters where he like 7-putted to give a couple of shots back. He really had about a 4 or 5-stroke victory at that Masters. It's really cool to watch, and that's where you start to think, well, now what's next? What's ahead for Scheffler? What can he accomplish? Well, certainly he can accomplish anything. The way how he's playing, does this new ball that they play in 2028 have any effect? Does that help him? That's something that I'm really going to be curious. I don't think the new ball, when it's in effect in 2028 for pros, 2030 for amateurs, it's not going to affect amateurs. It just won't. You're not going to see any significant rollback. You're not going to see any performance changes at all. There might be some pros that marginally get helped by it, and there might be some pros that get slightly hurt by it. I still don't think it will do a lot, but everyone always talks about the negative, and I'm one of them. I'm at the forefront of saying I think the ball needs to get rolled back further. But could it help someone? And with the way how Scotty, he doesn't overpower courses. And a great example is 17. Now, he didn't need to go for it on 17. But like Robert McIntyre, he's bashing it down there. Hao Tong Lee driving it greenside. Scotty is pretty far back, but he doesn't need to overpower the course. He decides, I'm going to take great precision and accuracy over chasing power. And he does have some pop in the bat. It's not like he hits it, a short distance like Brian Campbell, but he uses a great mixture and a healthy mixture of that power. And again, that's different than what Tiger did, especially early when he was just overpowering courses, especially as he got to the solid core ball era, right at that early beginning of it, where he was just, it was incredible to watch. But Scotty's taking that approach of just get it on 20, 25 feet away from the hole, pin high every time, and I'm going to trust my putter. And he made the adjustment to going to the claw grip, made the adjustment to going to the mallet. And it's not like he's been doing the same thing with the putter. I think that's another thing that might get overlooked, is that he had to change, didn't have to, but he changed a couple of big things with the putter. I mean, that's a big deal to go from a different style of putter. Okay, yeah, that still works. And then to completely change your grip. That's another awkward adjustment. And he makes it look so simple and so easy that it feels like the game is still quite a few years away from catching up to him and, taking advantage of winning these majors when you can. I've been saying it all week. I've been saying it all year, and I'll continue to say it. You have to take advantage when you have these opportunities. You don't want too many of these to rack up and say, oh, what could have been? You look at a career like Phil Mickelson. Yes, he does have those 6 majors, and he put himself in contention so many times, but he could be a 10-time major champion. Brooks Koepka has 1 less major than Phil and far less opportunities to win those majors, but he took advantage of those chances when he did. And Scheffler's doing the same thing, getting himself in contention, taking advantage when he can. And I mean, the record is it's crazy. There's no other way to describe it. And you think of how well he plays Augusta. Maybe he's now starting to figure out links golf. PGA Championship courses are fairly easy compared to the other 3. And compared to the other 4 majors. And he tends to play well at PGAs. And US Opens, it just seems like a matter of time before he is able to capture one. That's where your mind starts to wander about where does this end? I'll still say 7, but but I'm less confident in that now than I was 2 months ago after the PGA Championship, because it is so incredibly hard to win these majors, but he makes it look so easy, makes it look so effortless. And you just start to run out of ways to describe this kind of greatness. And that's, again, similar, not exact, but similar to what the Tiger era was like, where you just have to put your feet up and appreciate it. You just have to say, this is amazing what I'm watching. He's conquering golf, and he's doing it in multiple ways and on multiple platforms in multiple, now countries and, different styles of golf. It's hopefully a lot of people, and it seems like a lot of people are embracing it and finding it so great to watch him do what he's done. And, it makes you think, thankfully he didn't hurt himself even more with that ravioli incident. I mean, it's kind of still a very bizarre story, but what if that took him out all year? What if it took him out half a year, 8-7 months? That can really disrupt a career, not just a season. That can disrupt and derail a career, an injury like that, or set a career back multiple years. It just makes you think, what could have happened had something far worse taken place. So it's enjoyable to watch. This is something that, who knows what the next majors look like. I mean, probably won't hold all 4 majors at once. I think I don't know if we'll ever see that. But next year, US Open, I can't remember what the site is. I believe it's Shinnecock, if I remember right. Yeah, it is Shinnecock. And then you've got Pebble Beach, a place that they play on the PGA Tour quite a bit. Winged Foot, Pinehurst, Marion, all coming up next. Riviera in 2031. I mean, and then back to Pebble Beach in 2032. Now, we talked about this. I believe it was after the U.S. Open, or maybe it was before the U.S. Open. We were talking about where are the places that these guys could rack up multiple major championships, whether it was Jon Rahm, Bryson DeChambeau, Rory McIlroy, now Scottie Scheffler as well. Where can these guys start to pick off these majors at places that are pretty familiar and pretty conducive to how they play? And it seems like there's no course that Scottie Scheffler can't play at, because of, even when he doesn't win, he's finishing inside the top 10, which means he's giving himself those chances. And it's what I've said also, is get yourself in the mix, and you never know what can happen. You might, usually at majors, you don't luck into one. You have to go out and get them. But every once in a while at majors, everyone crumbles around you. I talk about 2019 Masters. Tiger Woods, he didn't overpower everyone. It wasn't a dominating performance like what Scottie Scheffler did, but his presence of just being there forced everyone else to crumble around him, and he just head down did his thing. I wonder if Scottie Scheffler is going to start to have that effect, where he's just his presence, him being in contention, being inside of the top 10, top 5, top 3. Will that force other players to go, oh no, I know he's not going to make a mistake. Now I can't make a mistake. Tightens me up, or, by me, I'm saying whatever pro is in that situation. And they end up crumbling, and Scottie, just playing his consistent game, can make guys fold like a table. That's something I think to look forward to over the next couple of years, maybe half decade. Who knows how long this run goes? But that would be something to keep an eye on. Is in these tournaments when he's there, how do the guys around him perform? Haotong Li brought up some interesting quotes talking about playing with him. He was asked, how was the round with number one in the world? He responded, it was actually super calm, and he's such a lovely guy to play with. We did a joke about each other a little bit, and just so nice to play with him. And he was asked to give an example, and Lee goes, I just said, is there any time I can practice with you when I go to the PGA Tour? And he said, yes. But I said, when I text you, you better reply to me. And he goes, Haotong who? That was actually pretty funny. Just a lovely guy to play with. And I enjoyed it. So that's that's pretty cool. To hear that kind of insight from a guy who, we talked about it quite a bit, was in the mix 8 years ago, but wasn't in the mix like this. And I think a lot of people, like I said earlier, were expecting him not to play up to the standards that he did this week. He hung in there. He showed a lot. And again, he talked about playing on the Euro Tour and going all around these places, how that might have helped him this week because he's had to deal with a wide range of variables. And that's what you get at the Open Championship. You don't know what you're going to get. Now, the weather was a lot better this week, especially on the weekend, than I think certainly a lot better than it was in 2019 or last year. But you still have to deal with the elements. You still have to deal with, like that first tee shot, one of the great opening holes in all of golf. You got to stand up and hit the shot, and you don't have a wide margin of error because you've got fescue lurking on both sides, and then you've got out of bounds that's not that far away. And there are some other holes, 5 pin in the back. You can't go back. You can't go past that pin. Otherwise you're out of bounds. Just a couple of paces beyond the flag on some days. And there are so many other holes, of course, everyone talks about 16, which again, Scotty Scheffler, birdie, 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 par on 16. I'm sure there are some guys who had in one round, they played, they might have gotten an 8 or a 9, and Scotty Scheffler plays it in 4 rounds at a total of 9, which is, 3 under on Calamity Corner. That's, that's unheard of. Again, that goes back to what I was saying about, Scotty not making the mistake, forcing other guys to not make the mistake. And, Haotong Li playing with him, I thought 70 is an outstanding round for him. And he seems to be pretty pleased with that. And he said that he's super happy to get that top 4 finish and getting back in the Masters. And he's looking forward to playing at Augusta once again. And, that's it's one of those cool moments that you hear from a guy that hasn't been in the mix, hasn't been in the eye of the professional golf world. As I said yesterday, teed it up 22 times in 2023 professionally. Made 2 cuts. 2 years later, here he is. So much can change. And are we expecting Haotong Li to be in the mix? Probably not. Probably not in a lot of more majors. This might be the greatest week of his life professionally. But it's still a really great story to see him stand in there and not falter. And it was a cool week for Haotong Li getting himself in the mix. So Harris English, as I mentioned, he's going to jump up in the Ryder Cup standings around that top 6 mark, being an automatic qualifier potentially. See where he stands in the FedEx Cup playoffs, because this would be, that's going to tell a lot of the story as to, can you just work your way through the FedEx Cup points list for these guys on the PGA Tour. He sits 6th right now in the FedEx Cup. So, he's going to have to play pretty bad to not make it to Atlanta. Seems like he's going to get there. Probably is, I would say, I think it's pretty safe for us to say he's on the Ryder Cup team. Could be an automatic qualifier. So a great week for Harris English, who is getting himself into the mix as well. No, he had a pretty good showing at the U.S. Open. The Travelers. He finished T4. PGA Championship is where he played well, finishing T2. Did get the win earlier in the year at the Farmers Insurance Open. Slow incline, though. Got off to a slow start this year. Even with the win, he didn't have a lot of good finishes. But since really the Masters, he's been able to get a lot of top 20, top 10, top 5, couple of top 5 finishes. Seems like he's on a good path heading into Bethpage. Would not be surprised if we see him. I'd be more surprised, I think, if we don't see him on the Ryder Cup than if we do. Chris Gotterup. This is going to be an interesting guy to see. Does he make the team or not? I would think he does. 25 years old. He'll turn 26 in a month. Coming off that win at the Scottish, and he's been playing solid golf. Now, he hasn't finished inside of the top 10 other than the last 2 weeks, but he's been making cuts for the most part. Missed the cut at the Canadian Open, missed the cut at the Texas Open. But since the Texas Open, he's been rattling off a lot of top 20s. And of course, the win last week. Let's see how he does over the next month. But this could be a big prove-it month for Gotterup, and he could throw himself right into the mix and make Captain Keegan think a little bit and say, well, now where do we go with the Ryder Cup team? Should be an interesting decision he has to make there. Wyndham Clark, let's get to it now about what Kevin Kisner had to say. Again, like I said, I wasn't watching NBC Live. I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it anymore. I had to muscle my way through the last 2 holes watching NBC, and I deeply regret it. They need to revamp the broadcast. It's just not good. I like Dan Hicks. I like him doing the play-by-play still. Maybe it's just nostalgic because growing up hearing Dan call all these tournaments. Bones is great. I like Smiley Kaufman. I think those are the 3, and I really enjoy Paul McGinley. I forgot to mention him yesterday just because I typically associate him with more of the Golf Channel, and they, don't always bring him into these broadcasts. Everyone else, I think, they need a revamp, including the people in the truck. I was listening to comparing Sky Sports to NBC. It was like NBC didn't have any crowd noise when Scotty was walking up. I had to turn my TV up just to hear barely the crowd. Awful. It's an awful viewing experience. Tron Carter had a post on X pretty much saying that like he wants to go to the Open because NBC's ruining it. And if I could, I certainly would be on that same boat. It's a bad experience to watch, and like it's like when they are going to be broadcasting a golf event, you just groan and you go, oh, gotta get through this because it's not going to be good. And that's not the case. It wasn't that case years ago. There was so much chemistry between the guys on the air, and the production was so good. You would hear like the crowd, for example, or like the other day, I can't remember what round it was. It was either round 2 or round 3. Justin Rose had a putt for birdie on the 17th hole, and they showed it as if he had finished on 18. Like simple stuff like that, you play shot. I mean, you see more shots that aren't live than live. So they should have that down. And in a major championship, those kinds of mistakes, you can't have them. You want to hear crowd noise. You want to hear good analysis that makes sense. And it was just it I hadn't watched Sky Sports or the World Feed a lot in previous years. I'm not going back unless something changes. It was a true delight watching Sky Sports. I said it before, Graham McDowell was outstanding, and I think NBC should give him a blank check for the lead chair and do it now. Like, yeah, I know he's on Live. And yes, I know who knows? Maybe that could be maybe that could help tie some things together and be a little friendlier. I don't know. But I mean, they should do anything and everything they can to put him on the broadcast. And honestly, Liv should do the same thing. We can talk about that another time. But as far as what we saw here in the States, the NBC broadcasts they are not up to standard for major championship golf viewing. And there needs to be a revamp on what they do. They need to completely clear out house except for those 4 people that I mentioned. Maybe Paul McGinley is in the chair as the lead analyst. I wouldn't mind that. I know he has some obligations with the European streams and the UK streams, and broadcast. So I get that. But it's unacceptable what we saw this week. And yeah, that's what I have on that. I don't know how you guys felt about watching it this week, but brutal. It was brutal and an awful viewing experience. And yeah, like I said, Sky Sports, I'm tuning in next year for the Open Championship, and I'm not budging on that. It was they just do such a great job. And like, when you listen to other sports, you want to hear the crowd. Like, that's part of the enjoyment of watching like a big moment. It feels big. It didn't feel big today. And I mean, it's unfortunate that Scotty has to win the career Grand Slam on an NBC Sports broadcast right now, because look back to the Masters. Watch the final round as a whole, but especially when Rory won, compare that to what we saw today. I mean, it's unacceptable. There's no other way around it. And Kevin Kisner brought up Wyndham Clark and him getting banned from Oakmont. And he was talking about, kind of alluded to what sounds like he was maybe indirectly blaming the USGA for the picture coming out of the lockers. What the hell is he talking about? I don't know what. Okay, so what if the USGA leaked the photograph? Even without the photograph, the email saying Wyndham Clark has been suspended from Oakmont would have been leaked. And whether that was by an Oakmont member, Oakmont itself, or the USGA that would have leaked it, or Wyndham's camp, it would have gotten out. And then people would have gone, wait a minute, why is he being suspended from the US Open? And we would have found out eventually. So, and if anything, the picture probably saves Wyndham, because think about this. Without the picture, and it's hard to do that because you have that picture infused in your mind. But let's say someone at Augusta damaged it. All the memo was, or all the information we were told is, after this round, this player damaged lockers, multiple lockers, because it would have been pretty vague like that. Your mind would have started to wander as to, well, how many lockers did he destroy? So the picture actually probably did him a little bit of justice, because when you hear multiple lockers, that could be 2, that could be a whole row. You have no idea. And the information would have come out anyway. Like, there, in this day and age, it's hard to keep anything secret or private. And I think back to like when Ian Poulter was on Full Swing in the first season. There was an episode where Poulter took out a couple of clubs in the locker room and threw them in frustration on the ground. I get it. Like, the locker room is like, I get his point. The locker room is supposed to be, I guess, hallowed grounds and pretty closed off. But I'm sorry, when you're damaging, like that moment with Poulter, if that's all it was for Wyndham Clark, absolutely it's a non-story. But when you start damaging stuff, yeah, you need to be reprimanded for it. You don't do that stuff. And especially because that was the second time in a month. You know, remember at the PGA Championship, he nearly hit someone with his driver, put a hole in the sign. The irony of it being a T-Mobile sign and him being a T-Mobile ambassador is just too good. But he nearly hit a volunteer. I mean, so the fact that it was multiple instances in a very close time, part of the problem, and you're destructing property that you're not a member at, another big problem. So I don't know. I'd love to, I guess, hear a follow-up from him as to where his head was at for Kisner. We know where Wyndham was at. He was in that dark place. I mean, every golfer has been mad like that at some point, right? Where you just want to take it out on, you know, some object, whether it's a tee marker or smash your club or snap a club. I mean, we've seen it time and time again. But I'd love to know what Kisner was thinking and why he would even say something like that. It just complete, like, just missing the mark as to the situation as a whole. And I that could be the straw that breaks the camel's back for this experiment with Kisner. You know, he's there sometimes, he's not there. He won't be there for the Ryder Cup because he's, you know, a vice captain. Interesting choice for him being the vice captain. I think there's probably 15 other people that'd be a better choice. But you can't defend that. You can't defend the behavior, and you can't defend what he said. And again, it's part of the larger issue of the broadcast for NBC being as terrible as it is compared to what CBS is doing week in, week out. I mean, CBS covers golf the right way, and they are lapping NBC. I mean, it's like it's the Secretariat photograph. That's how it feels like as far as the broadcast partners for golf. And hopefully there has to be a change. There just has to be a change so we can get CBS level coverage on NBC, because we know they're capable of it. They've done it before. But now completely dropping the ball and comments like that aren't going to help. So, but hey, credit to Wyndham for coming back too. He shoots 66 yesterday, 65 today, 66 in round two. Again, another. Well, what if he didn't? What did he shoot in the first round? It was 76. Wyndham, another. Well, what if he shot even? That puts him in the mix. Same thing with what we saw with Bryson. Matt Fitzpatrick, it's good to see him competing once again. As far as Ryder Cup goes for Fitzy, I still think he has a lot of work to do. I think the next month is going to be, he's going to have to really prove himself. He's jumped up to 22. But I mean, he's got behind guys like Jorge Campillo, Laurie Cantor, Thorbjorn Olesen, Marco Penge. He's got a lot of work to do. He probably needs at least a win, and probably no worse than like a top 15 finish in the full field events. Now, if he goes to Atlanta and finishes top 15, I I don't know if that does it. Let's see where he stands in Ryder Cup rankings, FedEx Cup rankings, because that will. He's right now at 42, so he's inside of that top 50. Should make comfortably, not comfortably, but he's around that comfort level of making it to the second round. There's a lot of work to do to make it to Atlanta, and if/when he gets there, I think he needs to have a top 10 finish there as well, for him to at least be in the mix legitimately to be on Team Europe for the Ryder Cup, where we know he can be productive. Talked already about Haotong Li. Robert McIntyre, another great week for him. Xander Schauffele finishing tied for 7th in his attempt at defending the Claret Jug. Pretty good week out of Xander Schauffele. And Rory McIlroy, probably disappointed with the 2-under round of 69 today. Had some good quotes talking about leaving Portrush this time. He said he's really pleased with his week. Of course, he wishes he could have been closer to Scotty going into today. But he was talking about also, he took a moment on the green to turn around, thank the crowd. Was that a moment of gratitude to be able to play in front of your home country? All of the above, Rory says. I think there's a lot of gratitude and, a lot of pride. A lot of pride that I'm from these shores, and in part with the way I've played and advocated for this little country. The Open has returned here, and it's been an amazing venue. Hopefully the R&A keep coming back. And I agree. Hopefully the R&A does keep coming back. It's a great golf course. It's fun. Crowds are out there. We're energetic, and big crowds too. Like we said in the preview, looking at the second largest crowds ever for an Open Championship, they showed up, and it seems like it was awesome. And you would think that it's going to be part of the Rota, and hopefully they get it back there. It's fun to see other venues, but I'd like to see it there in another 7-8 years. I think that would be great. Let's see. Any other quotes that Rory had? This is an interesting answer. The question was, you're one of a few players in history to accomplish the Slam, but I'm curious, what are your feelings watching Scotty go on a run like he has the past couple of years? Rory says, admiration. I think all you can do is admire what he does and how he does it. I think what he does is one thing, but how he does it is another. Just goes about his business, doesn't do anything overly flamboyant, but he's the best at executing in the game right now. He's been absolutely amazing over the past 2 to 3 years. As I said, all you can do is tip your cap and watch in admiration. I mean, that's a few months ago. He just claimed the Grand Slam, career Grand Slam, and he's admiring what Scotty Scheffler is doing. I think that just shows a lot to what he's doing. And it's, again, you start to run out of superlatives to describe what Scotty's doing. Let's see, anything else? Bryson DeChambeau. He had some interesting quotes. He's always down for a good quote. I forgot about this. He was talking about the after the first round after the second round in his post-round press conference, talking about not giving up, and gave some really great answers there. And then he was also talking about Keegan Mickelson. Keegan Mickelson. I saw Phil in one of his quotes talking about Keegan Bradley putting something into the locker, trying to find where that quote is, but pretty much he was talking about how Keegan put like a little message in a lot of the players' lockers that are up for being in the Ryder Cup. I'm curious who got those messages. That would be probably if I had to ask Keegan Bradley, I'd go, who got all of those notes? Because he obviously there's been a lot of talk about Keegan Bradley being in the mix. We'll see. It seemed, the way I was playing, he probably should be on the Ryder Cup team, or at least in consideration. But it's so unique having him be trying to choose himself. I know it's not the same, but when Tiger had to choose himself for the President's Cup, what was that, 2018? It was a weird, like, does he pick him? Does he not? Having all of these different responsibilities. I mean, it's a lot to be a captain of a Ryder Cup or even President's Cup. We'll see how that goes over the next couple of weeks. Again, we're coming up to U.S. selects their team. The top 6 players after August 17, so that's following the BMW, make it for the United States. August 24, after the British Masters, that will set up the top 6 for each side. As it stands right now, Team USA has Scottie Scheffler, who automatically qualified. Xander Schauffele, JJ Spaun, Russ Henley, Bryson DeChambeau, Justin Thomas round out the top 6. This will be updated tomorrow, so we will have a little more accurate representation for who is where on this list. Colin Morikawa, Ben Griffin, Keegan Bradley, Harris English, Mav McNeely, and Brian Harman are your top 12. Andrew Novak, Patrick Cantlay, and Sam Burns, 13, 14, and 15, although that could look a little bit different in September. Team Europe, Rory McIlroy, he's automatically qualified. Tommy Fleetwood, Robert McIntyre, Tyrrell Hatton, Sepp Straka, Shane Lowry are your top 6 right now. Rasmus Højgaard, Justin Rose, Ludwig Åberg, Victor Hovland, Thomas Dietrich, Matt Wallace are the next 6 on points. Jordan Smith, Nicholas Norgard, and Aaron Rai are 13, 14, and 15. Okay, why don't we reflect a little bit on this major season, and then that should pretty much do it. Maybe we'll take a little bit of a look at what's ahead next year. Before we do that, really quick, course played a little over 1 under par today. Easiest day of the week, playing at 1.11 under par, back 9 easier than the front. Afternoon played about a stroke and a half under par, and that really showed. Pretty much everybody in the afternoon wave shot under par, with the exception of Tyrrell Hatton, who shot 1 over. There was not a lot of players, even in the top 30 as a whole. Just Tyrrell Hatton and Christopher Reitan shot over par, and they just shot 1 over. That will do it as far as Open Championship stuff is concerned. Let's think back to this year on the majors. Cool year. You get to see career Grand Slam. You get to see Scottie Scheffler in the mix with a pretty overwhelming performance at the PGA Championship. Got a little interesting on that final round. JJ Spaun with an incredible performance down the stretch, hit some ridiculously clutch shots, and then Scottie again. I think this one is putting his stamp as the trajectory of being one of the all-time greats. Certainly a lot can change between now and the end of his career. But it looks like the pathway that he's on, it's a pretty darn good pathway for him to challenge some of those greats. I think, again, even if he gets to 7 or even 8 majors, it'll be the greatest. I mean, it'll be the greatest career that we've seen post Jack Nicklaus after 1986 when he won his last Masters. I mean, that's what is it? Only, I think Kyle Porter had the stat. It was like only 6 players in the last 30 years have won their 4th major. Only 6 or 7. And, you've got Tiger, Ernie Els, Phil, Rory, Brooks, Scottie. I mean, that's a pretty it's a pretty rare accomplishment to see 4. And it seems like he's not going to stop. And I think might be a hot take. but I only say hot takes because I earnestly believe them. This year might be more impressive than last year for Scottie Scheffler. Given that he had an unorthodox start to the year, winning 2 majors at a PGA Championship and an Open, the way that he's doing it, and it still didn't feel like he had his A game this week. I mean, I know he didn't get, doesn't have an opportunity to win like an Olympic gold this year. But what if he goes 5-0-0 at the Ryder Cup? What if he wins 2 more times this year? I just saying, you'd have to have that conversation of how much does the, whatever he won last year, does the Travelers have as much, or the Hero World Challenge, which I think they only have like 20 guys in that field. So, I mean, take that for what it's worth. Does the Travelers mean as much as an Open? No. Does the Travelers plus Memorial plus RBC plus Arnold Palmer Invitational, all championships that he won last year, have as much meaning as the 2 majors this year? No. I mean, I think it would be fair to say, should he pull off? I think if he goes 5-0-0 at the Ryder Cup, there would be a legit argument for this year being better than last year. And with the way how his worst finish this year is a T25 at the Phoenix Open, just his second event coming back from Ravioli night. Last year, finished a T33 at the BMW and T41 at the US Open. So it would be an interesting argument, but I think that's what we learned this year in the majors season is, Scottie finishing solo 4th at the Masters and a T7 at the US Open, a championship that he probably should have won had he putt. I think had he putt as well this week as he did at the US Open, he wins that by a couple strokes. I think we're learning that Scottie Scheffler is a legitimate, not just superstar, starting to turn into one of the greats. And I think, let's say he wins. I mean, how many majors does he win before he gets to greatest player post Tiger? If he completes a career Grand Slam next year, has he already surpassed Rory and Phil? I think he's awfully close. He's awfully close to Phil. With the way how he performs on the PGA Tour, I think he's probably surpassed Brooks. And it's not just his play at the PGA Tour. It's also, I mean, you look at all of these results in the majors. I think this is the year that Scottie Scheffler has stamped himself as one of the top 20 players of all time. Maybe top 15. Still a ways to go before he gets to top 10. Needs 2 at the bare minimum. Is that 4 now? No, I would say he needs 3 to get into that top 10. Plus what seems like an inevitable career Grand Slam. Yeah, then let's get. I think he needs 2 more to get into that conversation. 3+ career Grand Slam. He's a top 10 player of all time. And the crazy thing is, he could do that within the next 2 years. It's like I said last night. Enjoy the history that we're watching unfold. This is unlike anything that we have seen in the post-Tiger era. And it's hard to see it slowing down. Yeah, he might miss a shot here or there. But the recovery and the quickness to forget about bogeys and doubles and shake them off and immediately get birdie. Johnny Miller would always say on broadcasts, you never want to ruin a birdie by making a bogey. Well, he does the opposite. It's almost like he spoils the bogey by making a birdie. And by spoiling, I mean the rest of the field is thinking that. Because you see Scottie Scheffler fall one back, you go, oh, maybe there's a chance. And boom, he just pounds you into the ground with back-to-back birdies or birding 2 of the next 3 or whatever he does. Makes it seem like we could be discussing in 2-3 years from now, Scottie Scheffler is a bona fide top 10 player that's ever played the game. But the great thing about it is you don't know, and you can only just sit there and wonder as to what could be, as to what will be moving forward. Okay, let's go over what we will see next year on the major championship sites. Of course, we're going to the Masters in April, about 260 days from now. Then Aronimink in Pennsylvania. That will be hosting the PGA Championship in May. As I mentioned earlier, going to Shinnecock for the U.S. Open. And then the Open Championship. It will return to Royal Birkdale once again for the 4th and final major of the season. We'll have coverage of that as well. Okay. As for our live stream coverage, again, thanks for everyone who has been watching and participating throughout the major championship season. These have been a lot of fun. Been fun making some predictions. I will audit myself again. Didn't have the right number. Didn't have the right player. But had there not been a Scottie Scheffler, I would have had the right number. Didn't have the right player either way. But hey, predictions could have gone a lot worse this year. And that's the thing with golf. You usually don't get those predictions dead on often. I'll take getting 2 scores and calling the Masters playoff. I've got to pat myself on the back a little bit. So I'll take that. But as far as Ryder Cup goes, we'll have to see. That'll be right in the middle of the fall sports season. Should have a preview stream. Can't imagine we wouldn't be able to do one of those sometime that week. And then Sunday for sure. We definitely, I can guarantee a Sunday recap stream of the Ryder Cup. Again, fall sports season, it's up in the air. So whatever coverage we get out of that, it's going to be, it'll be a clunky like the PGA Championship, which is not how I want it to be. But hey, we've got high school sports that I think we're all itching to get back into covering the high schoolers once again, starting up another school year. And if you haven't been reading online, we'll have on-the-ground coverage of the U.S. Women's Amateur Championship from Bandon. Bandon Dunes Resort hosting that championship. We'll have a couple days of on-the-ground coverage. I think we'll be doing some streaming from there. Now, it will depend on internet situation, how good, how strong internet is, where I would be able to do it. I'd like to, but stay tuned for that. But we will have on-the-ground coverage. It will be full coverage for that championship, one of the biggest amateur championships, men's or women's, of the whole year. We've got it here in the Northwest. Head on down to Bandon if you want to watch some great golf. It will be on Golf Channel as well throughout the week. So awesome opportunity in early August to watch the next greats in women's golf. So that does it. Another major championship season is in the books. Rory McIlroy completes the career Grand Slam. Scottie Scheffler wins the PGA Championship. JJ Spaun improbably wins the U.S. Open. And Scottie Scheffler puts himself in the next echelon and the next tier of greatest golfers of all time. And Yeah, what an incredible year. Thanks for soaking up the content in any way possible, whether it was reading, watching, interacting, commenting, using the chat. It's always a great time, and really appreciative of you taking some of the time out of your day to enjoy this content. The golf content doesn't stop here, though. Men's amateur PNGA championship match, 36 holes. It's going on right now. We'll have a recap on the website and a whole lot more. EliSportsNetwork.com. Follow us on X at YourESN. Eli Sports Network on Facebook to get caught up on all of the latest golf here in the Northwest. The men's Mid-Am in Washington, that takes place starting tomorrow. We'll have Washington men's Mid-Am coverage and a whole lot more. So make sure you follow us online. Bookmark the website, EliSportsNetwork.com. All right, that does it. Scottie Scheffler wins his second major of the year, his fourth of his career, and is 3/4 of the way to achieving the career Grand Slam. Congratulations to Scottie. Thank you for a little bit of your time. Hope you have a great and safe rest of your summer, and we'll see you next time.